I guess it's afternoon now. Good afternoon. I'm Warren Copeland, Mayor of Springfield. We in Springfield thought we had escaped what had happened in other communities, but last night we had, on a much smaller scale, some of the same interactions as happened in cities, not only in Ohio, but around the country. I guess the main thing I want to begin by saying is that our police department attempts to treat people without any of the interaction that has been so sadly displayed in other communities. Specifically, we do not have police officers trained to do any of the things that happened to cause the death in Minneapolis. But last night, when we had an event here, actually it was last afternoon that the event started, right? 3 o'clock? And I want to thank those who organized that meeting. And that event went very, very well until it was supposed to be over. And things then went off track. And as a result of that, our police at a certain point decided to break up the meeting last evening. And when that happened, some of the folks who were here then threw rocks at buildings, including City Hall, broke some windows, etc. So the realities that have happened in other cities have come to Springfield. We are very sad about that, but we will do everything we can from here to deal with these issues with peace and understanding in our community. We remain committed to doing our police work the way it should be done, and our police treating people fairly. And we regret that that hasn't happened in other communities. And we are committed to working with our African American community to provide all of those opportunities we can for this to be a community where everyone feels that they are part of the city of Springfield. With that, I turn it over to our Assistant Mayor, Joyce Chilton.
Thank you, Mayor Copeland. I had to write out what I wanted to say because this is so disheartening. So I want to start by saying, this is our time, this is your time, this is my time. And we say, the city of Springfield say, we hear you and you're protesting against racial discrimination and the death of George Floyd. No, you cannot just say, I'm sorry. You cannot say the mistreatment of African Americans been going on for too long, and it's been going on for a very long time. Ecclesiastes 1:9 in the New International Version of the Bible reads, what has been done will be done again. What has been done will be done again and again. There is nothing new under the sun. Racism is not new. Protesting is not new. This is my time. This is your time. This is our time as a city to come together. Tearing up, breaking windows, graffiti on buildings, it's not what Springfield is about. Let's not allow outside influence to destroy what we have worked to build and work to keep. Everyone has an ink pen available to them in their purse, their pocket, somewhere. Let's use that ink pen in our time, your time and my time, to actually register and vote. And actually, on November the 3rd, vote. You want to make change? This is the way you make change. You fill out the census, you vote. Non-violent is what Dr. King preached during the civil rights events. Even though the curfew downtown is going to be set, I'm going to ask for our citizens' prayers and ask for our citizens to stay home when it's nighttime and know where your children are. This is our time. Thank you. Thank you, and we're going to ask Commissioner Rob Rue to speak.
Yesterday, I stood with members of the entire community, the NAACP, and black members of our community to stand for injustice. The death of George Floyd, the killing of George Floyd, was an extreme injustice that is worthy of protest. Broken people and broken systems. But unfortunately, today, the focus is on broken windows, because the same evil that put the pressure on the knee on George Floyd was the same evil that decided to take in their own hand rocks and sticks and bats and blast up and break windows and destroy property and cause violence. It's evil. And I know Commissioner Chilton said you just can't say it's just happening now. It's happened for decades and years and years and years. And again, I'm asking people who are white to wake up, to not point their finger and say, well, see, they're just upset. No. There's been an injustice. There's been generations of anger. I can understand the anger, but the violence that we're seeing now, unfortunately, takes the focus over what the message was yesterday in the peaceful protest that I was a part of with many members of the community. I'm sad. I'm very sad that things have happened this way, and I'm just doubly sad that where the message and the focus is not on the true message of racial reconciliation that it needs to be. Thank you for being here. Thank you to the women and men of our safety forces that have put their lives at risk to make sure that the protesters were safe and our community is safe. Thank you.
I'm Commissioner Dave Estrop. Racism is absolutely unacceptable, period. Violence is absolutely unacceptable, period. And what was a moment when this community came together to call out an injustice has been tarnished by those who chose to demonstrate violence towards property, our police, and others in this community. That does not move this community forward. It moves us backwards. We need to come together peacefully and continue to move forward together. That's what it's going to take, and that's what I pledge to help be a part of. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm President Denise Williams of the NAACP here in our wonderful city of Springfield. We hear you. We understand. We feel your pain. We are angry. We are disappointed. But if you want your voices to be heard, march, shout, but we must do it peacefully. What happened last night is unacceptable. This is not the way Dr. King wanted us to be. I have to tell you, after a huge successful event with our young people of the city of Springfield, we wake up to this. Those who came in from outside, you need to stay away from the city of Springfield. We have enough issues that we're dealing with all of this. So now here we are, we got to have a curfew. We're fighting a virus that keeps rising in our city. Now we got to fight this violence. We are already fighting discrimination. So let me tell you how you can help. Turn that energy and focus on our city. So now I'm challenging you, those who felt like they wanted to throw some bricks last night, those who felt like they wanted to break out some windows, write graffiti on the walls, come and join the NAACP. How about that? Put your energy and join the NAACP, because you can help. You got all that energy, and we can turn it around. So I'm asking you out there, you want something to do? Join the NAACP. Go on our Facebook, and our phone number is there. Now, right now, I want to bring to the podium Mr. Dorian Hunter. He is over the youth in the NAACP, and he had a group of young people. He gathered the young people yesterday afternoon to have this peaceful march. So I'm going to turn it over to him, because he did a great job yesterday. It was fabulous. And when he ended it, this is how you show our appreciation. Join the NAACP if you have so much energy to spare. Thank you. Dorian.
Thank you for giving me a couple moments to speak today. My thoughts on this situation, well, first, let me start by doing this. I want to thank everybody that was a part of the event yesterday, everybody who supported in any way, whether they were actually there. There were a lot of people that brought supplies, such as water bottles, first aid supplies, all that type of stuff. We greatly appreciate everyone's support. And it's very sad that this has come to this. We organized a peaceful march, and even though we had a few very minor, I wouldn't even call them incidents, a few very minor situations that were peacefully dealt with, peacefully de-escalated. We were able to get over, what I'm hearing, over 500 people. That's from some people that I've been talking to, over 500 people, all together protesting against the racial injustices that are going on in our law and order system and in all different types of structural systems in our country today. So I want to definitely speak out against people that are kind of using this to kind of make this about themselves, which I feel like the people who are vandalizing and doing all that type of stuff, they're making it about themselves. They're making it about themselves, and they're trying to get their own attention, get their own sort of rush in this type of situation, which, I mean, I know happens. It's happened all over the country. But at the end, when we ended everything between 5:30, 6 o'clock yesterday, everything was peaceful, and the madness didn't really start until later into the night, which I definitely want to highlight. Like I said, our march was totally peaceful. We had a very successful march, marched around the overpass in some pretty busy areas in the city. And thank you to Brian and the police chief for making sure everybody was safe. They helped block off traffic. They did a very good job helping us with this. And before I close and wrap things up, I want to say thanks again. I have a very special team that's behind me that helped make this happen. The NAACP Youth Committee, there's too many to name, but they know who they are. The community knows who they are, because we're working very fervently to change this community around and change the image of how people see us. So that's all I have to say about the situation. I'm very grateful for all of the people, again, that supported, all of the people that came out, because we made history yesterday. We made history yesterday. And it's sad, it's very sad that this situation is being turned to a 180-degree spin into all the violence and all the vandalism and all those type of things. So that's all I have to say. Thanks again, everyone, and we're looking forward to the next peaceful protest.
I just want to add one thing, which is I had another commitment that was important yesterday, so I was not there for that event. And one of the reasons I thought that was okay was we were having another event today, and we've now had to cancel that, and I really deeply regret that. So I want to thank the NAACP youth folks for doing what they did yesterday, and the NAACP adult folks, although you folks are adults too, who were going to have an event today. That's constructive, cooperative efforts, and we in city government are committed to responding to the needs of this community, and especially those related to race. But we're not going to have the event today because we do not want a remake of what happened yesterday.
Good afternoon. I'm Brian Heck, the city manager for the city of Springfield. First, I just want to say, in this community, we stand for justice. We stand for peace. We stand with all of our brothers and sisters of our great community against the injustices that exist within our country and within our world. But what we don't stand for is violence or vandalism. There's a proper way to use this platform to protest for change, and that's through peace. I want to take the time to commend my staff, specifically the members of our police division, for the great work that they did. As Dorian and Denise mentioned, we stand for peace with them. We stand for the injustices that exist, to change the injustices that exist in society today. We coordinated. We helped logistically to make it a safe, peaceful protest to protect them and the rest of the general public. What happened later should not tarnish what Dorian and Denise put together in our community. Springfield was prepared to make a statement to the country of this is how we can stand for George Floyd, how we can stand for justice, how we can stand for peace. Again, I commend the men and women of the Springfield Police Division who handled it with great compassion and great composure. I heard the things that were yelled at them. I saw the things that were hurled at them, and they kept their composure nonetheless. We should not let a few bad actors in the police profession across the country influence the respect that we should have for what these men and women do every day to protect the lives of our community. I do want to talk about, several of you mentioned the curfew. We have regrettably come to the decision that we need to place a curfew into effect. That curfew will go into effect at 6 p.m. tonight and will run through 6 a.m. tomorrow morning. It is an area concentrated in the downtown, with the northern boundary being East North Street, the western boundary being Center Street, the southern boundary being West Jefferson and Monroe, and the eastern boundary being Spring Street. This curfew will go into effect again at 6 p.m. tonight until 6 a.m. tomorrow morning, and it will last through Wednesday of this week. We believe this is necessary to protect those of the community as well as to protect those that serve our community. Mayor Copeland also mentioned tonight's peace visual, which I think we all were looking forward to actually honor the life and remember the life of George Floyd and what was lost last Memorial Day. Just a week ago today, we were going to hold a moment of silence at the time that he was actually cuffed. And unfortunately, we're not going to be able to move forward with that peace visual because of the violent and the vandals that existed last night in our community. It pains me because I don't want people to feel like we're punishing them in our community. As we talked about, we understand that people have been locked up under quarantine due to COVID-19, and we hate to put any other restrictions in place. That is why we tried to limit it as much as possible so that we could avail the necessary resources to protect our community, our citizens, and our businesses. I'm now going to introduce Police Chief Lee Graf. He'll talk a little bit about what the curfew means, but also talk a little bit about the events of last night. I just want to commend the leadership that Lee Graf has shown for this community, has shown for the police division, has shown for our organization. Great leaders make great organizations. Great organizations will make a great community. And Lee Graf is one of those great individuals. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Again, my name is Lee Graf, Chief of Police. Excuse me if I'm a little strung out. I'm working on about a half hour sleep, and I haven't eaten in about 24 hours. So, but I do want to start with saying that it's not me that makes the Springfield Police Division. It's the men and women, many who were based and come from this community that serve in the Springfield Police Division that makes it what it is. Throughout yesterday's events, it was Sunday. It's a weekend. There's grass to mow. There's things to do now that the state's opening up a little bit. But we got calls throughout the day from officers saying, do you need me to come in? What can I do? And they did. They came in. There's not a man or woman that worked yesterday that didn't put in at least 12 to 14 hours. And those were hard hours because they were working the streets, taking calls. While all this was going on, we still had the business of protecting our community to do outside of the boundaries of what happened in the downtown area, as well as managing a very large event, which was the organized event that Dorian and Denise and others in the community headed up. So my appreciation, my thanks goes out to those men and women. I've never been prouder of this organization, and I've been doing this for 25 years. I want to thank the Clark County Sheriff's Office, Deb Burchett, Chief Deputy Meyer, and all their men and women who were right there with us. We spoke with the same voice. We had the same idea, and I don't want to call it a strategy because it was really just a feeling of doing this the right way and what we could do to allow for this very necessary protest and necessary call for justice. So we wanted to support that in every way that we could. And I think that overall we did a pretty good job. I think we did a great job, in fact. I want to thank the State Highway Patrol. They came in at the later parts of this event to help us kind of lock down the downtown area and allow us to clear out the very small group, and I'm going to talk about that in a little bit, but I want to emphasize that, the very small group of individuals that were engaging in the vandalism that we've seen in our downtown core area. I want to extend my appreciation to the NAACP and to the organizers of this event, to Dorian, to Denise, because we worked together. We talked about expectations. I felt our obligations the whole time were public safety and the safety of this group. And it was a very easy flow of information back and forth. We were there to make this a success. Just by way of personal facts, you know, I stand with Denise. I stand with the NAACP. I'm a member of the NAACP. And not because I'm the chief of police. I stand with them because I believe in organizations that fight for people and fight for people's rights. I myself am a bit of a civil libertarian, so I believe in the right of protest, and I believe in the right of public voice and First Amendment. I believe in that Constitution and its Bill of Rights. And that's how this organization is. But to continue, we had talked. It was determined that there was going to be a march as opposed to just an assembly. And our whole goal yesterday was to leave a very small footprint because emotions are running high, and we did not want to do anything to take away from, detract, or maybe agitate some folks that might have showed up at the event. Not our local folks, not the folks that Dorian and Denise are talking about, but some of the things that we've already seen in Columbus, in Dayton, Cleveland, and throughout the nation that tend to show up to these things hoping for a little bit of chaos. So we tried to keep a very low footprint, but we also had to protect these folks and keep them safe. And so we did the best we could to block traffic and allow them to walk in areas that normally you wouldn't walk in, like on the overpass and those type of things. But a little bit of civil disobedience to push a message that's so important, I think is absolutely acceptable, as long as we can try to keep it as safe as possible. And that's what we did. This is not a reflection upon the organizers and the vast majority of the folks that showed up yesterday. Dorian worked very hard about 3 hours into this is to get people to, it's time to go home and then come back today. We had hoped for the vigil, but at a certain point, you're just not going to make an impact. And Dorian and the folks went home. And yet we still continued to allow folks to gather, but the problem was they were entirely blocking, including with vehicles, Columbia Street, which of course is a state route. And there was a lot of danger implications here. Let me make this clear. The reason that we finally had to act to try to clear that street was, first of all, for this community, but also for the safety of the people that were there in the street. We were very concerned that at some point, either we might have a vehicle crash or a vehicle accident, or perhaps someone driving into this that had serious problems with the fact that the traffic was blocked. We were trying to block off traffic, but there's a lot of ways to get around downtown. And we had a couple instances where there were almost fights or instigations of fights in the crowd. The composition of the crowd largely, and I'm talking after the event, later on the day, we realized that some people were there. We saw a person with a hatchet and a sling. There was a couple of guys wearing baseball bats slung over their back. We realized there was great potential there that things could break out. So at that point, we basically got online and tried to push the crowd and cleared the street. And I think it would have been pretty successful. We had a broken down car in the middle of the street. We had to get it out of there. And that took some time, and it allowed the crowd to kind of get momentum again. But rocks were thrown at that time. One of my officers was injured, not seriously, but of all that's the only injury I know of from last night, and it was us. That same person that had just been beamed with a rock went over and talked to a couple folks in the crowd and said, look, once we had the street cleared, if you still want to stay here, they were over in the corner by juvenile court, if you still want to stay here, as long as you stay out of the street, do not walk into the street and block it anymore, don't engage in any kind of criminal activity, don't vandalize, then we're okay. And we backed off and took, again, another small footprint while keeping an eye on things. I can't, what I would say broke out was a street party. Now, there were still people there, I'm sure, that were sincerely wanting to send a message, but this was a street party. There were cars that were coming down in. You may have some footage of that. I know there was some media present. Drag racing, peeling and squealing, doing donuts, motorcycles doing wheelies going the wrong way up Columbia again. Remember, Columbia, a major state route. And we had a couple instances where cars almost wiped out because they're not the professional drivers they think they are. And the problem was this was happening inches and feet away from 100 young men and women who were cheering it on. But at that point, the safety of that crowd, I just could not stand there and watch a car slide into a group of individuals. And I'm the person, I'm one of the people that has to go to moms and dads and say, your child is seriously injured. Your child is dead. I swore an oath, and it's to protect lives. That's the most important thing. And so at that point, we decided we have to move this crowd out of the downtown area. We have to seal off the downtown to stop this drag racing and this totally reckless behavior. So we pushed again. Once again, we were met with actually a greater and larger barrage of rocks. I'm not much for demonstrations. I think it's kind of cheesy and cheap. But I do want to show you what these officers were having hurled at them. Bats, rocks. I went and picked these up after the event. These were the kind of things that were hitting young men and women who were, I'm sure, scared as hell, because I would have been if I was on the line. I was behind them, but I was there. And yet, we did not react. There was no violence towards that crowd, but the crowd wasn't dispersing. And by the way, when all this was going on, they were giving clear orders to disperse with plenty of time to just go home. So they launched some CS canisters close in. The crowd did move, and they went and basically pushed the crowd south out of the downtown area. And by the way, most everybody went home, but a few folks stayed. Now you have to understand, we have to keep an orderly line to protect ourselves. It was a dangerous night. And some of these crowds started working around behind our people. I don't want to say crowd, let's say groups. And then that's when the vandalism started. Let me say something else. Now this is anecdotal because we're still gathering facts. This was a long night. Quite frankly, the majority of the folks that were committing vandalism were young white males. I want to make that clear, which is very typical of what we have been seeing in other cities. These were folks that had come there, I don't want to overly stereotype, perhaps not as involved in the cause that we are all very emotional about and believe in. These were folks that were looking to break stuff, to engage in violence. Now there were a lot of people throwing rocks, but once that group broke up, that was the core group that we were chasing around the downtown area as they were destroying business fronts and government property. And we'll survive as a government and we can fix windows, but these are business people who are members of the community, who are trying to feed families, who are trying to make this community, well, we already are a great place, but a greater place to live and thrive and survive. And it's just ridiculous and it's unacceptable. I can tell you now, a lot of video evidence, and a lot of folks in the crowd did a lot of Facebook Live and gave us a lot more video evidence. We haven't even got to the point of reviewing all that yet. But if we review it, and I can put names to faces, charges will follow. But again, I want to make this clear, that was not representative of the vast majority of the people that showed up for that march. And even for the people in the crowd, you know, you get 20-year-olds gathered together, they have a lot of fun. The vast majority of those kids, I talked to a lot of those kids last night. You know, after everybody ran away and people are wandering through downtown trying to get back to cars, I had very civil conversations with a lot of those kids. First thing I asked them, are you okay? Right? Because I'm coughing a little bit too. I didn't have a gas mask out there either. And they were okay, and we talked about it, and many of them expressed to me, this got ridiculous. But I do have to make this point. I said, yeah, but you were here, weren't you? So, but still, now, let's talk about tonight. Let's talk about this curfew. Again, this is just for a core area of downtown. It's not our will or wish to limit people's freedom, but we need to protect this community. And again, I'm going to go back to it. We need to protect the young men and women that might show up on these sorts of things from the chaos that ensues. What I saw in that corner in front of Juvenile Hall, and I'm a combat veteran twice over, and I've been doing this for 25 years. That is the most high-risk and most dangerous thing I have seen in my 50-plus years of living. It scared the bejesus out of me, and that's why we had to move it. But tonight, in that area, after 6 o'clock, if someone comes into that area and they're confronted and told to turn around and go out, if they do not, they will be arrested. Bottom line. This cannot continue. This cannot continue. And it is my hope that it will not. You know, so the men and women of Springfield Police Division and the Clark County Sheriffs and the State Highway Patrol, who was also extremely helpful last night, will be here again. And we basically want to have a very quiet night, and that'll be it. But we're invested in the safety of this community, and we will keep this community safe. So that's about all I have, and I appreciate your patience. I know I'm a little long-winded, but it's been a long night. So, thank you. Yeah.
I also wanted to add, Commissioner Kevin O'Neill was not able to be here. He's tending to a medical appointment with his wife, but I know he stands with the commissioners, with the NAACP, with our organization against the violence, the vandalism. We, again, as a community, stand for justice. We stand for peace. We will not stand for the injustices that we see throughout this country and our community. And we will certainly not stand for the violence and the vandalism that we saw last night in our great community. With that, I'm sure we'd be glad to answer questions.
About how much does the damage cost? Do you know that yet?
We do not have an exact estimate on that. Our forces, our men and women of the police division, even with how busy, how tired they were, started to assess the downtown last night. We had staff in from our organization out to assess the damages that occurred along the plaza and around the perimeter. We will work to develop what that total cost looks like. I will say it will be a significant cost for City Hall. Those windows are not inexpensive. At last count, as of last night, over 15 of those were damaged.
Brian, some community people have expressed to me some fears about, I guess, objects, you know, if I'm talking like benches, trash cans, things like that. I just wanted to put out there if there has been any planning of we're going to take those out of the streets at this point or anything like that.
We are currently looking at any object that is not secure and it would be easily movable or throwable and taking that away. We saw several of the things that broke windows last night were objects that they picked up, but make no mistake, as Lee pointed out, many of these individuals came with the intention. They had a plan of what they wanted to do, and they carried backpacks with rocks, with bats, with other weapons because they intended to cause harm. They intended to vandalize.
Were any immediate arrests made last night?
No, they were not.
Where do you feel like the social distancing now? A lot of people are saying displeased that you're canceling the event tonight. Is there any way that you guys could just do a video at that time or something and post it on the Springfield page or?
Yeah, we've talked about that idea, that concept. Again, much like Lee, it was a late night, so we have not been able to put that together, but that is a potential opportunity to do something. Because again, this platform should be used to raise awareness, to raise concern with the injustice that occurred in Minneapolis to George Floyd. That's what this platform is to bring attention to the injustices that exist, specifically the racial injustices that exist in our community, in our state, and in our country. And that's what the platform should be.
Let me repeat something that I said back a few days ago. What happened with the police in Minneapolis was wrong. Our police are trained not to use those means of holding somebody down, and it should not have happened there either. So we want to make clear that we operate differently than what happened there, and we also find it totally unacceptable.
So all of these comments have been great, and I appreciate everybody from coming. I want to give a challenge to those who are viewing, those who are watching, because like we've been over many times already, the people who are doing the vandalism, who are doing the destructive acts against the community, they're not they're not protesting what we're protesting. They're trying to spin this as a destructive measure that people use to get attention. And so I want to give a challenge to everybody that's watching this, everybody in the room, that though we definitely have to address this violence, and we cannot stand for it because it's terrible, but these people are taking the easy way out. It's easy to pick up a brick and throw it through a glass, have it shatter. That's the easy route. We took the hard route organizing this protest. We were able to get a message out within less than 2 days and have almost, in my opinion, I mean, I really, like I was telling a couple of my friends I was speaking with yesterday, I don't know what 1,000 people look like really, like all together, but shoot, I think we got somewhere close to 1,000 people yesterday. And it would be very hard for me to believe that any of the people that were marching with us yesterday were a part of the violence and vandalism. So I challenge the people to focus on the issue that we're protesting, focus on the success of our protest, and don't give the vandalists the attention that they deserve. We shouldn't even, we definitely, like I said, we definitely have to address it. We have to speak out against it because it's not our community, that's not Springfield. But we can't pay them attention. We can't have the news headlines talking about vandalism before they're talking about the actual protest that was highly successful. A protest that I don't know if anybody else has seen a protest like that, but I know I've never seen that, and I know the people who marched with us yesterday, they've never seen anything like that happen in Springfield. So I challenge our news sources, I challenge everybody in the community to focus on the good and ignore the bad, because the bad they want attention. They want to stir up buzz, and they want to negate everything that we put our blood, sweat, and tears into to make this work. So that's my challenge for the Springfield community, for all the viewers watching, and I hope you accept this challenge.
Any additional questions?
Were there any businesses, I know we talked a lot about City Hall, but were there businesses that were hit? And if so, have like the community stepped up to help them?
Yes, there were several businesses that were hit in that core block area, around the perimeter of the core block. And I do know that there were people out. I saw them this morning. I actually talked to a couple on the phone that called and said, hey, we're bagging glass, we're trying to help out, where can we put it? And again, we worked with them on where they could dispose of that. So yes, the community stepped up. There were many that came out to support what's going on in our community, the great things that are going on in our community, and help those business owners recover.
Keith, is there any way to quantify, I guess, after, things had kind of escalated, talking like 10, 11, midnight, the response from you, the Sheriff's Office, and Highway Patrol, if you could quantify that, if you could, the response?
Are you saying like numbers or?
Yes.
Well, we probably had upwards of 30 officers combined with street officers, our staff, our command staff, myself, a couple of my captains. Sheriff was very similar, and the Highway Patrol at the point that they responded was probably about 40 or so. The Highway Patrol, I can't say enough about them because they have been supporting all these agencies all over the Miami Valley and throughout the state. I mean, these folks are working on less fumes than I am, and yet they came here rapidly and quickly. Lieutenant Colonel Tiefer came out here, and if you know that, he is extremely high up in their chain of command to come out here and help us out. So, and they've committed resources if we need them going forward. So yeah, I don't know if that helps, but yeah, it was definitely a large presence to try to basically clear the downtown area and restore order.
About what time would you say things were pretty, clear, the night was over?
Probably, what time did I call you that it was okay to come up?
About 2.
I have no track of time after all this, folks. Probably about 2 o'clock in the morning. We felt we had things secured enough that we could start allowing folks to come in to effect repairs and those sorts of things. We want to make sure they were safe before we told people come on in.
And what time did the danger start?
I would say when we made the first attempt to try to move folks out of the street, when the first rocks were thrown on the car I talked about and all that, that was approximately 8-ish. We wanted to try to get all that done before it got dark. Unfortunately, that car, in a way, let the nighttime slip over us a little bit. And then the second push to try to get everybody out that was over in the corner with all the car and the danger that was being presented there was around 11 o'clock-ish, I would say. Again, I'm sorry, but we haven't had time to sit down as a group and do a timeline on this yet. So, but it was in that area.
Good with questions? I'll just end that, our community is great because of the partnerships. You've seen the partnerships exist right here today. You heard about the partnerships last night. I thank the Sheriff's Office. I thank the Ohio State Patrol for their assistance and their continued assistance, because this is our community, and the way we move forward is together. And so I appreciate everybody that provided assistance and lent their hand to make Springfield and continue to make Springfield a great place to live, work, and play. Thank you.